This is what consciousness feels like on psychedelics. What if everything you think of as you, your name, your memories, your body, just dissolved? What would be left? This is what it can feel like to experience pure consciousness on psychedelics. It's a journey beyond the self, a temporary flight from everything you know and into the very fabric of the universe. For thousands of years, mystics and spiritual seekers have talked about states of cosmic unity and enlightenment. Now, modern science is finally starting to map this incredible territory, not with ancient texts, but by looking right inside the human brain. And what it's finding is that the experience of yourself completely dissolving isn't just some poetic metaphor. It's tied to a real, measurable event in the brain. This journey isn't just about wild visuals or distorted senses. It's about the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. Section 1. The ordinary world, the fortress of the self. Before we can understand what it means to lose the self, we first have to appreciate what the self is in our normal, everyday lives. Think about it. Right now, you feel like a distinct individual. You're located inside your body, looking out at the world through your eyes. You have a name, a history, a bunch of memories, and a stream of internal chatter that's constantly commenting on your life. This is your ego, your narrative self. It's the main character in the story of your life, the anchor that gives you a sense of stability. In neuroscience, this stable sense of self is closely linked to a brain network called the default mode network, or DMN. The DMN is most active when you're not focused on the outside world. When you're daydreaming, thinking about the past, planning for the future, or worrying about what other people think of you. Essentially, the DMN is the brain's headquarters for all things self-related. It's the biological hardware that runs the software of you. It constructs and maintains the story of who you are, separating you from the world around you. This network isn't fully formed at birth. It comes online as we grow and develop a stable ego. It's the fortress that protects our sense of self. But what happens when the walls of that fortress come crumbling down? Section 2. The catalyst. The walls begin to crumble. This is where psychedelics like psilocybin, the active compound in magic mushrooms, or LSD, come in. These substances primarily work on the brain's serotonin system, specifically targeting a receptor called the 5-HT2A receptor. This sets off a cascade of changes in the brain, and one of the most important is what it does to the default mode network. Neuroimaging studies consistently show that under the influence of psychedelics, the activity and organization within the DMN dramatically decrease. Imagine the DMN as a company's CEO, always managing and reinforcing the corporate identity. Psychedelics essentially send that CEO on an unexpected long vacation. The rigid top-down control it normally has over the rest of the brain loosens up. The usual patterns of self-centered thinking are completely disrupted. This drop in DMN activity is strongly linked to the subjective experience of what's known as ego dissolution, or ego death. The less activity in this network, the more people report their sense of self fading away. But the DMN doesn't just go silent. As its internal chatter fades, something else amazing happens. The rest of the brain starts communicating in new and unusual ways. Brain regions that don't normally talk to each other suddenly form new connections, leading to a huge increase in global brain connectivity. The brain enters a hyper-connected, fluid state of thinking. This neurological shakeup is the catalyst that launches consciousness into a whole new dimension. We're about to journey into the heart of that dimension, the experience of ego death itself. This is a topic that sits where science, philosophy, and the deepest questions of human existence meet. If you find this exploration as fascinating as we do, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. We explore topics like this every week, and we'd love for you to join our community. Now let's cross the threshold. Section 3. The journey into the unknown, dissolving into the cosmos. So what does it actually feel like when the brain's scaffolding for the self is taken apart? The descriptions, shared by countless people in both studies and personal accounts, are surprisingly consistent, yet incredibly hard to put into words. It often starts with a change in physical sensation. The clear line between your body and the environment begins to blur. Some people describe feeling like they're melting into their chair, or that the air they're breathing is no longer separate from their lungs. This can be followed by a loss of ownership over your own thoughts. That constant narrator in your head either goes quiet or is no longer felt as yours. As the experience gets deeper, the very concept of being a separate I collapses. This is the core of ego dissolution. It's not that you forget who you are, it's that the question, "Who am I?" becomes totally meaningless. People report a complete loss of their personal identity, their life story, and the sense of being an individual moving through the world. Instead of a self, there is only awareness, a pure, boundless consciousness. This state is often described as a feeling of unity with everything: the room, other people, the entire universe. People report cosmic consciousness, a sense of being one with the ultimate reality that underlies all of existence. Time and space can lose their meaning. There's no past to remember or future to plan for. There's only an eternal, present moment. The experience is often called ineffable or beyond words, yet filled with a profound sense of truth. For many, this is a state of ecstatic freedom and bliss. To be unburdened by the ego, with all its fears, anxieties, and constant self-judgment, can feel like coming home. But it's worth pointing out that the experience isn't always a blissful ride. For some, losing the self can be terrifying, leading to anxiety and a fear of going mad. The setting, your mindset, and the dose are all crucial in shaping the journey. But even in challenging experiences, the dissolution of the self is the main event. It's a temporary trip into what some spiritual traditions call the non-self, an experience of consciousness that is raw and unfiltered by the idea of a personal identity. Section 4. The return and integration. Rebuilding the self. A psychedelic journey doesn't last forever. Depending on the substance, the effects start to fade after a few hours. The process of coming back to ordinary consciousness is just as important as the peak experience itself. As the brain's 5-HT2A receptors return to normal, the default mode network slowly comes back online. The internal narrator flickers back to life, and the fortress of the self begins to rebuild itself, brick by brick. Often the first thing to return is the sense of your body, followed by the gradual reappearance of personal memories and identity. But the self that returns isn't always the same one that left. The experience of its own dissolution can leave a lasting mark. Having witnessed a state of consciousness without an ego, the world just looks different. And this is where we start to see the real therapeutic potential. The temporary reset of the DMN can help break rigid, negative thought patterns that are linked to conditions like depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Mystical experiences that involve intense ego dissolution are directly correlated with significant and lasting improvements in mental health and well-being. People often report a decreased fear of death, a greater sense of connection to others and nature, and a lasting feeling of psychological openness. The experience offers a new, broader perspective, showing that the story of the self, which can often be a source of great suffering, isn't the whole picture. It's just one way of being conscious, and other ways are possible. Conclusion: the new normal, a more flexible fortress. The journey into ego dissolution shows us that our everyday sense of self isn't a fixed, unchanging thing. It's a process, a pattern of brain activity that can be temporarily paused. This doesn't mean the ego is an illusion or that it's bad. The ego is a vital tool for getting through the complexities of human life. But the psychedelic experience suggests it's not the only way to be conscious. By temporarily disrupting the brain's model of the self, these experiences allow for a deep re-evaluation of our most fundamental beliefs. They introduce a new psychological flexibility. The fortress of the self is rebuilt, but this time with more windows and doors, less rigid and more open to the world. The feeling of consciousness on psychedelics is the feeling of consciousness untethered from the I. It's the experience of awareness itself, vast and interconnected. It's a glimpse into the possibility that behind the story of you, there is a boundless reality that connects us all. And that is a realization that can change a person's life long after the chemical effects have worn off. It leaves you with a lingering, powerful question. Who are you when you're not being you?